But let's first start off with that Avatar trailer. Jonathan, you just watched that trailer. We had a big interview with Entertainment Weekly. This is kind of our last big trailer. What do you think?
Yeah, I just can't wait. I'm so hyped for it. It looks so good. I'm glad we got to see some clear bending. We got to see, I think, each
Yeah.
form of bending, and so far it looks very promising. It looks like they did a really good job. I like when you see the air scooter that it doesn't look too gimmicky or too fake, but I think they kind of blended it well to where you can see the air, but it's not, it's not a cartoon. It's not silly.
Not
Yeah.
too
So
fake, but I'm glad they went for it because I don't think the
yeah,
2010 movie would have gone for it. And you could
yeah,
tell like they're and that's another thing too I really like about the trailer. What we're seeing so far is those are characters I could name off of the actual series,
yeah.
like Boomy and stuff like that. Like those are characters you know already.
Yeah, yeah, and I like getting to see some of Sokka's personality come out in the
Mhm.
trailer. It's like good. He's not, same thing. He's not too kiddie and overly funny, but he's more realistic to fit the character, in a
Yeah.
live action form, and it's perfect. Like let's see the rest of it fleshed out that way. It looks good.
That's one of the things we learned during this Entertainment Weekly is really great interview with all the cast. And they were saying that Sokka is not going to be sexist or like this. I like to think of it as like a sex crazy teenager, right?
Yeah,
He's going to be a little bit more fleshed out. And one of the things we want to focus on is the trauma on the family after the Fire Nation tore apart the Water Tribe. Because remember, the dad's out there fighting the Water Tribe and stuff like that.
yeah,
So we're going to be learning more about that.
and that's awesome because in the show, I mean, it was primarily made for kids, and so we're trying not to dwell on the hardships they're dealing with. But in a live action series like this, which I'm pretty sure we're the target audience, the kids that watched it when we were younger, we can handle that kind of emotional turmoil or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be cool to really kind of dwell on that heavier side of it. And they reference back to the struggles they had in their past or growing up, but not with much weight behind it. It's always kind of glossed over. So it'll be kind of cool to see it more realistic.
Yeah, and I think Sokka's a really great example of how the writers discovered who that character was as the show went on,
Mhm.
because we got to see like by the end, it's all about him being a leader, and that's the thing that
Mhm.
he does. Like everybody has bending, but he's a leader,
Yeah,
and him finding that sword made out of a comet and getting that made, that
making
was
it.
a
Yeah.
really big
Oh.
turning point in his character. And all of a sudden
Mhm.
now Sokka actually has value instead of just being the annoying brother that's in love with the Moon Princess, and then in love
And
with the Kyoshi Warrior and stuff.
and rescuing his dad and proving to his dad that he's a warrior
Yeah,
and is getting that kind of like, no, you're better warrior than I could ever hope to be, and you're gonna lead our people now. He's trying to save his dad, like finally we got our leader back to keep us going,
yeah.
and he's like, no, passing the torch kind of thing. It's like, oh man, that's so cool because we see Sokka grow from being that annoying little brother to being a strong leader. But I don't know, I'm so excited to see it in live action.
Yeah, it kind of now that we're talking about this and we're talking about Star Wars just before this, it reminds me much of like everybody else's Jedi's, but you still want that Rebel Alliance, and he is very
Mhm.
Rebel Alliance. Like
Yeah.
his dad was definitely Rebel Alliance out there with just a couple of the water canoes and fighting.
Yeah, I wonder if in the writing that was the character that we could most relate with. That's the
Yeah,
audience's, character. It's interesting.
yeah, maybe that could be. Some of the other things we see from the trailer, of course, familiar character, familiar faces. It looks like we're getting full Fire Nation, and we've learned from the interview that we're
Mhm.
actually going to start the show off with not them discovering Aang, but the genocide of the air temples. So we're actually going to
Yeah.
see the Fire Nation's attack. Do you think we needed that?
I think that's a good hook at least, if nothing else, because the the series before starts in the Water Nation and you don't really know what's going on. They find Aang, but it's kind of shrouded in a lot of mystery, and you don't know anything about the war and stuff like that. So I think that would really kind of start it off with like, oh shit, there's a big bad out there. We know it's lurking out there somewhere, and then we see our heroes and kind of start to learn their story. I think it's a good way to start it out.
I especially like it with Aang's case because if you look at how the show started, Aang's this happy-go-lucky kid. They find him. He's like a bubble of joy. We
Mhm.
see his very first episode. I think it's a two-parter. He goes into Avatar State and thrashes the Fire Nation boat. Right. So we're
Mhm.
just seeing like, oh man, this kid's actually serious. But now let's think back. If we had seen him barely survive the attack on the air temple, and I don't think he actually just got out of the air temple thing. He didn't know about the genocide at all. But I'm sure that's how they'll play it off. Right.
Oh, maybe.
If they're going to show it, I think the idea of showing it is showing that the Aang escaped it. Basically, in my opinion,
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, in the original show, he fled because he didn't want the pressure of being an Avatar, and then
Avatar, yeah,
happened to get trapped in the storm. But
I think it'd be really cool to see this kid who like survived this trauma, basically. Then we see that he's all joy and stuff like that, and we're like, oh wow, that's interesting. Kind of, we know that under that skin layer deep, he's probably broken. And then when he goes into Avatar state, it's letting that part out. It's embracing the emotion and the depth that's behind the character, you know.
And that builds this big emotional story where it would have a build up to a burst where he, just like we find him in the beginning in that cocoon of ice, he has emotionally compartmentalized. So that trauma he hasn't dealt with, it's just, you know, frozen up inside him somewhere. And eventually he's going to have to break it open and deal with it.
And it kind of makes that bubbly personality a little more palatable for live action, because then it's more of a mask and his personality. Like, it's not just his personality, but also kind of how he's coping with things. And then think about that scene where he's learning fire nation or firebending too soon.
Yeah.
And he lets it go a little bit too much. Well, then it's like, well, if he's tapping into something that's not good.
And has flashbacks, which make him lose control of his emotions and lose control of his bending. That'd be pretty dope.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's pros and cons, but that would definitely make it interesting to add that element to it.
That's the side of the live action that I'm looking forward to the most. Is like, let's see if we could kind of stretch out some of these characters and see if we can make things, you know, like we're talking seasons from now, but once they get into that blood bending, how's that blood bending going to relate to, so on screen and stuff? It's going to be so many cool things.
That's going to be that episode will be like a horror movie. That'll be so cool.
Oh yeah.
And just the deep, like, I don't even know how, like, guilt that Aang would feel knowing that he was there when the Fire Nation attacked and he fled and he's the only one of them that survived, and yet he's the only one that could have potentially saved everybody.
The Avatar that's supposed to protect people, he wasn't ready for it, but that's the title you're given. And then all of a sudden it's like, maybe I could have done something, and it's like, no, there's nothing you could have done.
Well, in the Avatar state, he would have channeled all the other ones, whether he really tried to.
Yeah, so, he probably could have stopped the Fire Nation.
Yeah, was it
and they were probably hunting him down. That's why they went to the air temple, to hunt him down. Yeah. So it's like, if I didn't exist at all, they wouldn't even come for me.
God. Okay. After they're done with the show, they got to make a what if series about it. Like, he would stay there and fight, and he becomes a white flame dragon that is Fire Lord or Avatar Ozai? Sozin?
Sozin.
I'm so discredited now. I can't remember the former fire bending Avatar.
Yeah, it's Sozin. It's his comic.
Oh yeah. Okay. But yeah, imagine if he channels him and he's so enraged, channeling through Aang, that he forms a fire dragon that fights off the Fire Nation.
Oh my God.
That'd be dope. That'd be so dope.
One of the things that they're changing too is we're not going to have Zozin's comet. So it's not going to be I think the reason they're doing that. Well, if they do, so the kids are aging like crazy. They're saying that since audition, it's been a few years, and like Aang's not a little kid anymore. He's very much entering into that preteen, teenage stuff. So they're like, okay, we're gonna have to kind of change the age of these kids as they go. So if we think about this, say we fast forward 5 seasons, and they're fighting the Fire Nation on their doorsteps, they're going to be young adults doing it, and it's going to be different than what we're used to as a show. So they kind of have to they can't have like, oh, in 2 years, Sozin's Comet's going to be here, because the kids are going to look way older than that. So that's why they're just getting rid of it off the table.
But I mean, they could write it in and time lapse between 3 episodes building the characters, and then a time lapse that skips forward 1.5 years to where oh shit, the comet's almost here, and he hasn't finished training. He's learned water bending and starting on earth bending, but he still needs to find his firebending teacher.
I have a feeling we'll get time lapses like we end off season 1 with them, finishing off in the water tribe up in the north, but then we'll start off with the second one. Maybe they're like sitting there attacking random fire towns and stuff like we'll just see like, oh, they're getting better at this already. Like we'll just kind of jump around. We do that with Witcher a lot, same, Netflix and everything like that. So maybe it'll be similar.
Yeah. I'm interested to see Combustion Man too, when they put him in there, how that's going to play out.
Season 3, I think, right? Combustion Man. That's 3? When Zuko's starting to work with him, is in that season.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm looking for. They said in the Entertainment Weekly interview that Zuko and Aang, that's one of the things they're most excited for, is showing that in live action, that hatred into brothers, like that transition is going to be such a fun transition on live action.
Yeah, and because you see from the beginning, like Aang's always reaching out the olive branch, but Zuko's just swatting it away, and then finally he breaks down, realizes who he really is and all that stuff. And we see in that trailer the Blue Spirit, which is
right there, right behind me. Yeah.
So dope. Yeah.
Jonathan 3D printed that, and it's like, you should just mass make those, man. That's crazy. Which is kind of the first time we see something more to Zuko. And speaking of something they could delve into more Blue Spirit, because we only got him once, and he's such a beloved character or aspect in the fandom, and yet only in one episode, only for a moment. So boy, they could really fill that out.
We see him later on. We only see him once in season 1, probably. I know
When
he
do we
puts the
see him
mask on
again?
again in the Earth Kingdom when Aang gets captured and he's in
The Dai
Lake Lao guy.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know he used it there too. Okay.
Yeah, remember they get invited to Lake Lao guy. But I'm pretty sure. God, I'm terrible. I'm losing all kinds of credit here.
I think I'm gonna rewatch it. I gotta rewatch the old X-Men too, because we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. But yeah, I think I'll have to go through another watch of. I've already watched it a few times, but I'll watch it again. Avatar.
There's definitely a point where the mask comes off and Aang saves Zuko, knowing that the blue spirit was him.
That's right. Yeah, they're like in a cave. And,
I think that's Lake Lao guy under that lake. Yeah.
You're 100% right, John. So now we need to dive into that more. I want to know, like, did he get that mask from his mom or something like that? Or
yes. Oh God. Yeah. Read the comics.
It's in the comic.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I still have more to read too, but it's a good story.
So what we're gonna do, we're gonna kind of shift conversations now, but I want to let you guys know we're gonna do a special Geek Freaks right before the release of Avatar. I'm hoping Jonathan will be on with me. It's going to be all preview and talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender. We're going to go into what we know from the comic books. You know more than I do, but I do know some from the comics and all that stuff like that. So that'll be fun. We're going to dive into it, kind of get you guys all hyped up for Avatar, and then of course we're going to review it, and then we're going to review it here, and we'll do a review over at Challenge Accepted. So that'll be fun. All the episodes are releasing at once. That's going to be tough.
Yeah. Let us know if you guguys want to see a live stream of us when we watch it. We can probably do that too.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I can see doing that.
That might be more work, but
it is. But we'll figure it out.